Yes, welcome to the Pan-Africa Symposium. We're here with Mr. Ron Bethea, who has been involved with solar energy projects and in a syndicated, is that right? Podcast.
Podcast. We're online. We're national and international. Solar now in the future with its economic impact on Black America.
Right. So we want to have a conversation, and I'm going to really let.
Okay, no problem.
So what we'd like to do is have Ron talk about some of the origins of solar in the DC area and also on the national level. And I understand you also have some international ambitions as well with solar.
Yeah, well, what we're doing, we formed an organization, a 501c3 organization called the National Association of Blacks in Solar. And the purpose of Positive Change Purchasing Cooperative, LLC, we, in fact, work with our historically Black colleges and universities. We work with African and African American based firms to, in fact, come up with initiatives to build capacity at our HBCUs, to bring down the underemployment of our young African and African American men and women locally, nationally, throughout the diaspora with projects. That's one of the biggest hurdles that we have as African people, is that we've been left out of the green, this new green economy. The Biden administration signed Executive Order 14006, 14009 4 years ago. That was the very first thing he did when he came to office. That gave rise to what we call legislation called Build Back Better legislation in the Inflation Reduction Act, known as the Inflation Reduction Act. $1.7 trillion has been spent. Less than 2% of that has gone to African American institutions, nonprofits, entities run and led by African Americans. Now, we're working with a brother by the name of John Karinga out of Kenya. He's come up with an amazing technology from an off-take of what we use here in the U.S., which drives the energy industry. It's called the energy credits. They're known as RECs. Those are the credits. When the sun hits the panels, that's direct sunlight going and hitting those panels, and that's what we call DC. When it goes down the electrical harness into a converter, it's converted to AC that runs the appliances in homes and buildings and commercials. They turned around and doubled the price on the meters, but we ended up having to have those meters installed in our homes nationally. So these meters have the ability for that energy that's not used, that meter turns backwards. And if you look on your utility bill, and most folks, one of the things we need to do is literacy around teaching our people basic things like how to read an electric bill. You can see it's 11 cents a kilowatt hour, but it tells you what you're paying in cents. Well, this is the issue. We were here at Bowie State University in 2018. My firm, working with Dr. Lillian Abrams. Dr. Abrams' firm is known as Peer Consult. She has a leading environmental engineering firm in the world. She has offices here in the U.S. She also has offices on the continent of Africa. Now, I was just bringing in the issue of speaking about John Karinga. He's based in Kenya, Africa. He's been here several times. John knows have come up and taken what we would call as our REX market, and which is sold on the U.S. commodities market every day. And in the District of Columbia, these credits sell for $410 a kilowatt hour. It takes 1,000 watts to make 1 kilowatt hour. They use that income in Africa, and they put it back into the system, because our people on the continent who have homes, we have over 6 million people who never seen a light switch. This is one of the biggest issues with homes and housing on the continent.
Musician, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, sir.
Who's moved into other markets.
But he's gone they brought energy to 80 million African homes through working with building what we call community solar projects or substations. So there's a lot of education that's necessary, but the issue is why we're here at Bowie State today. This is talking about housing shortages and problems which we have here in the U.S. I specifically have issues because I'm from South Carolina. I happen to own some properties in my hometown. We're having on the continent, we have right here, especially in rural America, because I come from one of those small towns where you have a huge county, less than 30,000 people in the whole county, but we're strategically located. I'm 60 minutes from Myrtle Beach, putting your foot in the water. I'm in a small town called Dillon, South Carolina, which is a part of those 11 counties that cover from Georgetown. It's called the Greater PD area. And if you want to talk about some real poverty, we don't have to go to the continent and housing issues. I got a call yesterday here in the U.S. The issue is, how do we deal with that? The mayor of California, the Honorable Sharon Bass, she is chair of the National Mayors Association. They just had a meeting last week out in Kansas City, Missouri, talking about housing, talking about homelessness. It's a major, major problem in all of our central and urban cities because of cost of living. Corporate Transparency Act that nobody's talking about, where in this impact on the real estate market, we're talking about people who have short-term lease rentals in their properties in order to pay the mortgages to keep those properties. Well, some folks don't, I refer to them as COVID 45, some people say Donald Trump, okay? But when you look at that legislation that was passed December of 2020, that kicked in January 1 of 2024, where if you have less than 20 employees, you make it under $5 million a year, you have to file a report with the U.S. Department of Treasury. It's up to $10,000, and if you can't pay the fine, there's possible 2 years of federal jail time. If you make a mistake or put the wrong person's name on about that, and this is very pertinent in real estate because most developers and most people who are in the real estate business, which I was in as an agent years ago, they form LLCs where they're targeting these LLCs. But if you look at who have been the leading business entrepreneurs and startups, have been our young, what we call freelancers, African American women since 2019. These are all impacting the housing market because whatever you get, you got to get from people. And we realize that if people are being, when you are an entrepreneur industry and how our properties are devalued and we don't get access to the same capital. Now, how does this relate to this housing and this transition for the Pan-African cities? Well, you got the same model all over the world because everybody, that's where everybody comes here. And the game is all about the exchange rate of currency.
Have you traveled to the continent?
I have not been blessed enough to be able to travel to the continent. I want to go before I close my eyes. Let me put it. The reason why I'm here at the conference today is because there has been $1.7 trillion that have flown out of the 6 federal agencies. 40% of that money is supposed to go to low and moderate income communities. When we look at those pass-through organizations, I'm looking at right now through the Greenhouse Gas Initiative out of EPA, $7 billion for a program called the Solar for All program. That program was started in the District of Columbia, where 90% of African American families qualify to meet that area median income. And for our young people who are homeowners or who have parents, they need to be aware of that program and that when they pay their gas, water, and electric bills, They're paying to put those systems on their roofs, whether they apply to the program or not. And that's very, very disturbing to me is that they're unaware of the pass-through organizations such as the Maryland Clean Energy Center, which is located in Annapolis, Maryland, that will be receiving $62,400,000. My question to them is, how are you going to roll this information out to the community? How are you going to engage our young people around this so they will know that this funding is even available? And how do you plan to do workforce development training with the Power 52s of this world, which is Ray Lewis, NFL Hall of Famer, Ms. Cherie Brooks, who I've worked through with Mr. Bob Wallace with Fifth Energy out of Baltimore.
Can you define Power 52?
Power 52 is a workforce development cadre training program which is located in Howard County. They work with our low moderate income and returning citizens in Howard County, PG County, and Baltimore City. They've been doing this for the last 10 years. They do an excellent job. I said, well, Chuck, send me and let me know what it is, because see, that's why in my Rolodex, I got my African brothers, my African American brothers, my Muslim brothers, because of this podcast I've been producing since 2016. I interviewed everybody from the guy who's going up the ladder with the panels on his shoulder to the CEO, to the legislature, to the head of the Public Service Commission, because all of that is interconnected. And one's role is no more important than another. And we look at the day-to-day through our platform, Solar Now and the Future with its economic impact on Black America.
To go.
And I want to thank you, brother, for giving me this opportunity.
I am delighted
To be here.
that you came, because I think you touched on some of the key issues, which is basically, and when you use the word ignorance, people think you're talking down
No.
to them. What you're really saying is there's information that's hidden in plain sight.
Like a lack of knowledge.
We were saying, and where can folks reach you if they want to find
They can
out
go
more
online.
about
They can go online to positivechangepc.com. Please click on our news and events tab, and they can click on our video gallery, and they can podcast gallery. They can click on that. We're rebranding the site now to become an online digital radio, TV, podcast network where we'll be streaming through YouTube, because we're trying to integrate everything about us, but they're not talking to us. And when I go in places,
You're talking about African American,
I'm talking about Europeans who get the funding
Yes.
that runs these pass-through organizations,
Right.
that's received this hundreds of the groundswells of this world, the grid alternatives of this world receiving $159 million. I've got a listing of these entities that will be receiving this funding. Now, they're talking about community solar. Well, what community solar? It's a short word for subscription solar. They want to sell things to low and moderate income people, rather than letting them put PV systems on their rooftops and go becoming consumers of energy into energy producers.